The jungle of Epsilon Cygni IV was alive with strange colors and sounds. Giant leaves swayed even though there was no wind, and soft, glowing plants illuminated the dark forest floor. Birds that looked like floating crystals sang in tones that seemed almost musical. This world was beautiful, but it was dangerous, and everyone on the colony team knew it. Dr. Mara Velasquez, a senior exobiologist, moved carefully through the thick undergrowth. She had been studying the alien flora for months and knew every step needed to be cautious. Her young assistant, Jason Hale, followed closely behind, carrying a backpack full of research tools. Jason was not used to being in the field in such wild terrain, but he trusted Mara. She had a calm confidence that made him feel safe, even in the middle of an alien jungle. "Careful, Jason," Mara said, her voice steady. "The plants here are not the only things you need to watch. Some of the creatures are small but fast. Keep your eyes open." Jason nodded, gripping the strap of his backpack. He had trained for emergencies, but nothing could have prepared him for a jungle like this. Colors seemed brighter here, movements faster, and the air carried a strange, faint hum that set his nerves on edge. Suddenly, a rustle came from the bushes ahead. Mara froze. Jason's heart thumped in his chest. "Easy," Mara whispered. She knelt down, scanning the area. "It's not large, but stay back. These creatures are clever." A flash of green and silver moved quickly, almost like a ribbon floating through the air. Before anyone could react, it struck. The xenoserpent had come. It was small, no longer than a meter. But its movements were incredibly fast. Its scales shimmered, reflecting the glow of the plants around it. And then, with lightning speed, it bit Mara on the thigh. Jason gasped. "Dr. Velasquez!" he shouted. He rushed forward, but Mara, despite the sudden pain, stayed on her feet. "Jason!" she said urgently, her voice firm even though she winced. "You have to help me. You have to extract the venom, now!" Jason froze. I don't know how." "Yes, you do," Mara said, gritting her teeth. "I've taught you enough about field medicine. Use the suction extractor from your bag. Hurry!" Jason's hands shook as he fumbled for the tool. He had only used it once before during a training simulation, but now it was real. His mind raced with fear, but he tried to focus. Mara leaned against a tree, her hand pressed to the bite. The xenoserpent had disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only the pain and the growing swelling around the wound. Jason finally grabbed the extractor. It was a small, portable device, shaped like a tube with a pump at the end. The instructions were simple, but the stakes were not. Mara's face was pale, and her breathing was shallow. Jason took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Okay, he said, more to himself than to Mara. "I can do this." "Good," she whispered. "You are doing this for life, not just science. Keep the pressure steady. Don't stop." Jason placed the tube over the bite. He pumped the suction carefully. Slowly, he could see the venom being drawn into the tube. It glowed faintly, a strange greenish hue that made Jason's stomach twist. He had never seen anything like it, but he kept going. Mara's hand held onto his shoulder. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. Jason's arms were tiring, but he could not stop. Each pump of the device drew more venom from her body. Mara's eyes were closed now, but she gave him small nods whenever she could. "You're doing fine," she murmured. "Just a little more." Suddenly, the extractor beeped. Jason had almost reached the maximum safe extraction limit. He paused, looking at Mara. "Is it enough?" he asked. Mara forced a small smile. "It's better than nothing. You've slowed it. That's what matters. Keep the wound clean and help me to the base. We can finish the treatment there." Jason carefully helped Mara stand. She was weak but could walk with his support. They moved slowly through the alien jungle. Every step was tense. The shadows of trees seemed to shift, and Jason kept expecting another xenoserpent to appear. But the jungle was silent now, as if holding its breath. Why are they so fast? Jason asked, trying to keep his mind from panicking. They've evolved here for millions of years, Mara said, breathing hard. They are not strong like Earth predators, but they are quick and smart. Humans, we have something they don't. We think, we adapt. That's why we survive. Jason nodded. He had never thought about humans in that way before, but now, helping Mara, he felt a strange pride. Humans may not have the claws or the venom, but they had courage. They had loyalty. They had the ability to act when it mattered most. The path back to the base was long and treacherous. Roots twisted like snakes underfoot, and glowing plants distracted the eyes with their beauty. Every sound made Jason jump, and every shadow seemed like a predator. Mara's steps were slow, and Jason had to support most of her weight. But they moved steadily forward. At one point, a small stream blocked their path. The water shimmered in colors Jason had never seen before. Mara sighed. Careful. This water is acidic to some plants, but not to humans. Still, watch your footing. Jason helped her across. The water was cold, but not unpleasant. As they reached the other side, Jason noticed tiny creatures swimming just below the surface. They were translucent, like liquid crystals, and seemed to be studying them as much as they were crossing. Epsilon Cygni 4 is full of surprises, Mara said, almost smiling, and every one of them is testing us. Finally, after what seemed like hours, they could see the lights of the research base through the thick jungle. Relief washed over Jason. He had done it. They had survived the bite. At the entrance, Dr. Lee, the medical officer, rushed toward them. What happened? Is she okay? Jason handed over the extractor. She was bitten by a xenoserpent. I removed the venom as best as I could, he said, his voice trembling. Dr. Lee examined Mara quickly. You did a good job, Jason. She's stable. The venom is mostly out, and with proper treatment, she'll recover fully. You kept your calm. That's what saved her. Mara gave Jason a tired but proud look. You did well, Jason. You stayed focused. You didn't panic. That's what humans do. We face danger, and we find a way. Jason felt a warmth in his chest. He had never felt like a hero before, but in that moment, he understood something important. Humans might not be the strongest or the fastest, but when it mattered, they had the courage, loyalty, and ingenuity to survive anything, even a venomous alien bite. As Mara was taken inside for further treatment, Jason stayed at the entrance of the base. He looked back at the jungle, now quiet and glowing under the alien sky. Somewhere in those trees, other xenoserpents waited. But Jason knew one thing clearly. Humans had a way of rising to any challenge, and next time, he would be ready. The jungle was still wild. The world was still dangerous. But humans were not so easy to stop. Jason could hardly believe how quiet the jungle had become after the ordeal with the xenoserpent. Even though he was relieved that Dr. Mara Velasquez was being treated inside the base, his mind refused to rest. The forest outside glowed under the alien lights, but he could not shake the feeling that something was watching him. The base's perimeter sensors were active, but Jason remembered Mara's words. These creatures were clever. They communicated in ways humans couldn't always detect. Just because the immediate danger was gone didn't mean it was safe. Jason, Dr. Lee called from the medical bay window. Are you coming inside? Jason nodded and walked in, but he could not stop scanning the jungle. Every shadow, every flicker of movement made him tense. Inside the medical bay, Mara was recovering. The wound on her thigh was cleaned, treated, and wrapped carefully. Her face showed signs of pain, but more importantly, she was smiling at Jason. You did really well, she said softly. I'm proud of you. You stayed calm under pressure. That's not easy for anyone, let alone someone so young, Jason felt a flush of pride, but his relief was short-lived. The sensors at the base started beeping urgently. Dr. Lee frowned and ran to the control panel. Movement detected. Several targets approaching the base. Jason's heart skipped. Are they xenoserpents? He asked. Dr. Lee nodded. Multiple. Likely a hive. They are intelligent and coordinated. It's unusual, but we cannot ignore it. Mara sat up straighter. Jason, you need to help prepare defenses. We need every human skill we have. Jason swallowed hard. He had helped with experiments and field medicine, but defense was another matter entirely. Yet he could not hesitate. Humans had faced dangers before and adapted. They could do it again. The team quickly began preparing the base. They activated force field barriers, which were strong but not impenetrable. Jason worked with engineers to set up vibration flare drones, small hovering devices designed to create distracting patterns that could confuse the xenoserpents. Listen carefully, Mara said. These creatures are sensitive to vibrations. They track movement and sound in ways that are different from humans. If we can create patterns they think are dangerous, we can lead them away or slow them down. Jason nodded. It was complicated, but he focused. The hive approached faster than expected. Through the thick glass of the base, he could see shadows moving between the glowing trees. Hundreds of shimmering forms, each one small but deadly in its own way. They were organized, moving with precision as though they shared one mind. Dr. Lee handed Jason a control pad. You're in charge of the drones. Place them carefully. The hive follows patterns. Disrupt those patterns, and we gain time. Jason studied the pad. Each drone could hover, emit vibration pulses, or flash a bright light. Timing and placement would be everything. If he miscalculated, the hive could break through the barrier. He took a deep breath. Okay, let's do this. Outside, the xenoserpents paused briefly, as if sensing the humans preparing. Then the forest trembled as more creatures joined the first group. Jason felt a pang of fear, but also determination. Humans were small, fragile compared to this swarm, but they had one thing the xenoserpents didn't: ingenuity. Jason activated the first drone, hovering it above a path the creatures were likely to take. He adjusted the vibration frequency, careful to avoid overlapping pulses. Slowly, the swarm shifted, confused by the new patterns. Good, Mara said from behind him. Keep adjusting. Don't let them form a clear path to the base. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Jason worked tirelessly, activating drones, adjusting vibration patterns, and tracking the swarm's movements. Every now and then, a xenoserpent tried to get past the barrier, but it was always diverted. One of the engineers, a tall woman named Sienna, came up to Jason. You're doing amazing! We didn't think the drones would work this well in practice. Jason shook his head, still focused. We have to keep going. If we stop, they'll get through. Mara, now standing with the help of a cane, watched the operation closely. Humans have always survived because we never stop thinking. Look at you, Jason. You're proving that right now. Despite the tension, Jason found himself noticing the beauty of the creatures. Each xenoserpent was covered in scales that shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the alien light. Their movements were fluid, almost like a dance. He felt a strange respect for them. They were not evil. They were simply doing what they needed to survive. But respect did not mean mercy. Jason knew the survival of humans depended on his actions. The swarm began moving faster, pushing the limits of the drone's influence. Jason realized he needed a more daring strategy. Dr. Lee, I have an idea, he shouted. We can use the central flare drone. If I program it to mimic a giant predator vibration, it might scare the entire hive away. Dr. Lee looked hesitant. It's risky. If it fails, they could attack even harder. Jason nodded. I know, but it's our best shot. Mara stepped forward, her eyes bright with determination. Jason, you've already done more than anyone expected. Trust your instincts. Humans survive because we take risks when we must. You can do this. Jason felt his fear melt into resolve. He quickly programmed the central drone, increasing its size, vibration frequency, and brightness. It hovered above the forest, larger and louder than any xenoserpent had ever experienced. The swarm paused. Jason's heart pounded. Then, slowly, the creatures began to retreat, moving back into the jungle. The simulated predator had worked. The hive's instincts told them this was too dangerous, and they would live another day by leaving. Cheers erupted inside the base. Engineers clapped Jason on the back, and Mara smiled proudly. "See," she said, "human creativity is stronger than fear. That is why we survive." Jason exhaled, exhausted but exhilarated. He had never felt more alive. For hours he had faced a challenge that seemed impossible. But by staying calm, thinking clearly, and acting bravely, he had helped protect everyone in the base. That night, Jason stayed by the window, looking out at the quiet jungle. The xenoserpents had vanished, but he knew they would return. The jungle was full of life and danger, and humans were just one small part of it. Yet he felt a deep sense of pride. Humans may not be the strongest or the fastest, but they were resilient, clever, and courageous. That made them a force even the most intelligent creatures had to respect. Mara sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Jason, you've learned an important lesson today. Danger is real, but humans can adapt. You used knowledge, courage, and creativity to protect lives. That is something no predator, no matter how clever, can take from us." Jason smiled, looking at the jungle one last time before closing his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, and new adventures. But tonight, he knew humans had proven something important. Even against the strangest, most dangerous creatures, they could survive, and sometimes survive in ways that nothing else could imagine. Outside, the jungle hummed softly, alive and unpredictable. Somewhere deep in its shadows, the xenoserpents would watch, waiting, learning. But humans had shown they could adapt, and that was enough, for now. The morning sun barely reached the jungle floor, filtered through thick alien foliage, casting green and purple shadows across the base. Jason awoke to the hum of the sensors, a familiar sound that had become a part of life on Epsilon Cygni 4. But today, the hum was different. Faster, more urgent. He rushed to the control room. Dr. Lee was already there, staring at the monitors with a frown. Mara, now walking without a cane but still cautious, followed him. "They're back," Dr. Lee said quietly. "The hive. It's larger this time. They've grown in number overnight. We estimate at least twice as many creatures are approaching the base." Jason's stomach sank. Twice as many. After the last encounter, he had hoped they had learned to stay away. But this was a different intelligence at work. These creatures were calculating, observing humans, adapting to every move. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Jason, you helped before. We learned a lot yesterday. Humans survive because we can think, adapt, and act fast. Today we do the same, but smarter." Jason nodded. Fear still lingered, but determination had replaced most of it. Yesterday had taught him that humans had one advantage: ingenuity. The team sprang into action. Engineers hurried to reinforce the barriers, checking for weak spots. Jason and Sienna coordinated the drone network. The hive's intelligence was growing, so humans had to outsmart them again. "We need more than just drones," Jason said. "We need patterns that make them hesitate. Split them up. If they think the base is too dangerous, they'll retreat." Mara watched him, proud. "Exactly. You've learned well. Humans win by turning thinking into action. Go ahead, Jason." "Plan." Jason quickly sketched a strategy on a digital pad. He would divide the hive with multiple decoy flares while reinforcing the central predator drone from yesterday. The smaller drones would act as false prey, drawing some of the swarm away from the base. Dr. Lee raised an eyebrow. Risky. If it fails, the hive might surround us completely. Jason squared his shoulders. We can't just wait. Humans survive by acting. That's what we do. The first group of xenoserpents appeared in the distance. They shimmered like silver and green mirrors, moving with coordination and intelligence that was almost frightening. Jason felt his heart race, but he didn't allow fear to take over. He activated the first decoy drones, sending them along the paths leading away from the base. The hive hesitated. Some creatures followed the drones, their instincts drawing them to what seemed like weak or easy prey. Others stayed near the main path, probing the base's defenses. Jason adjusted the vibration patterns in real time, watching the swarm's reactions. Each time they hesitated, he nudged them further away from the main barrier. Hours passed in tense concentration. The humans were calm but alert, adjusting, adapting, just as Mara had said. Suddenly, the base trembled. A larger group of xenoserpents had ignored the decoys and approached the barrier directly. They were bigger, stronger, and more synchronized than the first wave. Jason's mind raced. The smaller drones would not be enough. He activated the central predator drone, increasing its brightness and vibration intensity. But this time, the hive did not retreat immediately. They seemed to test the signal, analyzing it. Mara stepped forward. Jason, don't panic. They are learning. You have to act faster than they can adapt. Jason took a deep breath. He increased the number of decoy drones, adding unpredictable movements and irregular vibration pulses. He monitored the hive carefully, noticing which creatures were reacting and which were bold enough to test the barrier. Slowly, the hive began to split. Half followed the decoys, the others hesitated near the base, unsure of the danger. Jason adjusted the central drone's patterns, simulating the presence of multiple giant predators instead of just one. The xenoserpents' hesitation grew. Their coordinated movement broke into scattered, cautious steps. Jason felt a surge of hope. Humans were small, fragile, and slower, but their brains could think in ways that even the hive could not fully predict. Sienna called out, Jason, look! They're retreating on their own. Jason watched the monitors. The hive was moving back into the jungle, drawn away by the decoy patterns and the simulated predator signals. The humans had outsmarted them, not through strength, but through creativity and observation. Mara put a hand on Jason's shoulder. See? Humans are remarkable. We don't need the claws or speed of other creatures. Our minds are our power. You just proved it. Jason smiled, exhausted but proud. The base was safe for now, but he knew this was only temporary. The hive would return, bigger and smarter, and humans would have to be ready. The team gathered after the swarm had retreated. Engineers checked the barriers, and medics confirmed Mara was fully recovered. Even Dr. Lee, normally reserved, smiled at Jason. You have a talent for thinking under pressure, Dr. Lee said. The hive tested us, and you helped us survive. Jason felt a warm sense of pride. It was not about glory or recognition. It was about survival, teamwork, and the human spirit. Humans might not have the physical power of the alien creatures, but their creativity, courage, and loyalty made them formidable in ways no one could underestimate. Mara spoke to the team. Today proves something very important. The hive is intelligent. It learns. But humans adapt faster. Our ingenuity, our courage, our ability to work together, that is what makes us a force in this galaxy. Never forget that. As the sun set, painting the alien jungle in hues of orange and purple, Jason stood at the edge of the base, looking out at the trees. Somewhere in the shadows, the xenoserpents would be watching, learning, planning their next move. But Jason no longer felt fear. Humans had faced death before. They had survived storms, wild animals, and impossible situations. The xenoserpents were dangerous, but humans had something even more powerful: the ability to think, to adapt, and to act together. Jason smiled. The hive would return, no doubt about it. But next time, humans would be ready. And when that day came, he knew they could meet the challenge, not with brute force, but with courage, intelligence, and unity. Inside the base, the team celebrated quietly, sharing stories of the day's events. Laughter and chatter filled the halls, a small reminder that humanity could survive even in the most alien and dangerous worlds. Jason looked at Mara, who nodded proudly at him. He realized something important. The hive did not scare humans because they were fearless. Humans were scared all the time, but they acted despite their fear. That was their strength. That was what made them remarkable. And in the deep jungle of Epsilon Cygni IV, under alien skies and glowing plants, humans had made their mark. They had survived again, not because of size, strength, or speed, but because of heart, mind, and spirit. The xenoserpents would return, and the jungle would always be dangerous. But humans would endure, and they would always find a way, because humans never gave up. The next morning, the jungle of Epsilon Cygni IV seemed quieter than usual. The soft glow of alien plants reflected off the wet leaves from last night's brief rain, but Jason knew better than to trust appearances. Danger still lurked among the shadows, and the hive of xenoserpents that had tested them twice before would eventually return. Inside the base, the team was already awake and working. Mara Velasquez, fully recovered now, moved among the engineers and medics, checking on equipment and supplies. Jason followed closely, still learning from her example. Every day here required focus, adaptation, and quick thinking, skills that humans had in abundance. "Jason, come with me," Mara said, gesturing toward the strategy room. "It's time to prepare for the next encounter. The hive won't give up easily, and neither can we." Jason nodded. Yesterday had taught him that the alien creatures were smart and adaptable. Humans were small and fragile, but their greatest power was their ability to think, improvise, and work together. That would have to be enough. In the strategy room, the team spread out maps of the jungle. Holographic markers highlighted the paths the hive had used before. Jason pointed to several potential ambush points. "If they come from the north, we can use the elevation to our advantage. We can set drones in patterns they won't expect." Dr. Lee nodded approvingly. "Good thinking. Humans survive because they can plan, predict, and act. The xenoserpents may be clever, but they cannot anticipate everything." Mara placed a hand on Jason's shoulder. "Exactly. You're learning the most important lesson of all. Survival isn't just about strength. It's about knowledge, timing, and courage." Hours passed as the team prepared defenses. Barriers were reinforced, drones were upgraded, and sensors were calibrated for maximum sensitivity. Jason spent the time checking every detail, adjusting patterns, and programming the central predator drone to simulate not just one, but several large predators at once. The goal was to make the hive hesitate, confuse them, and buy humans time to respond. By mid-afternoon, the first signs of movement appeared on the perimeter sensors. Jason's heart raced as he scanned the holographic display. The hive had returned, and this time, it was bigger, faster, and more coordinated. Hundreds of shimmering xenoserpents were advancing through the jungle, their metallic green scales reflecting the light. "Remember your training," Mara reminded him. "Humans are not the strongest, but we survive because we think, adapt, and act together. Today will be no different." Jason activated the first wave of decoy drones, sending them along side paths to split the hive's attention. The xenoserpents hesitated. Then a portion of the swarm followed the decoys, leaving the main group closer to the base. Jason quickly switched to the central predator drone, adjusting vibration frequencies and flight patterns to simulate multiple large predators. The hive paused, sensing danger, but some of the boldest creatures continued toward the base. Mara walked past him, monitoring the hive's behavior. "They learn fast," she said. "Every encounter teaches them something, but humans learn faster. That is why we will survive." Jason nodded, keeping his eyes on the monitors. The hive moved cautiously now, splitting into smaller groups. He adjusted the drones to create an unpredictable pattern of movement, light, and vibration. The xenoserpents reacted exactly as he had hoped, hesitating, retreating slightly, and then advancing again, never forming a clear path to the base. Suddenly, a larger group tried to break through the barrier from the eastern side. Jason realized that a single central drone would not be enough this time. He quickly deployed 2 additional predator drones, each simulating massive alien creatures in unpredictable patterns. The xenoserpents froze. For the first time, the hive hesitated in full. The humans were not only defending, they were outsmarting the creatures. Jason felt a rush of pride. His hands moved quickly over the control pad, coordinating the drones with precision, making sure the hive's attention remained divided. Outside, the jungle was alive with motion and shimmering colors. But inside the base, humans were calm, focused, and in control. Jason realized that this was the true strength of humanity, not the ability to fight, but the ability to think, adapt, and work together under pressure. Hours passed. The hive continued to test the humans, moving in small groups, probing for weaknesses. Jason adjusted drone positions constantly, while Mara and Dr. Lee coordinated with engineers to reinforce the barriers in weak spots. The humans had become a living system of observation, prediction, and action. Finally, the hive began to retreat. The combined strategy of decoys, predator drones, and human coordination had worked. The alien creatures slithered back into the jungle, disappearing among the glowing trees. A cheer erupted inside the base. Engineers clapped, medics laughed with relief, and Mara smiled proudly at Jason. "See? Humans survive because we never stop thinking, never stop learning. Courage and knowledge can defeat even the most dangerous creatures." Jason exhaled deeply, exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced fear, pressure, and danger, and humans had won again, not by strength, but by intelligence, creativity, and teamwork. Dr. Lee approached him. "Jason, you've learned something very important today. Humans are not the fastest, not the strongest, and sometimes not the most dangerous physically, but we survive, we adapt, and we protect one another. That is our greatest power." Mara added, "And never forget, Jason, that courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. You proved that today. The hive may return, but humans will always find a way to endure and triumph." As night fell over Epsilon Cygni IV, the jungle glowed with alien colors under the light of twin moons. Jason stood at the edge of the base looking at the dark forest. Somewhere hidden in the shadows, the xenoserpents were learning, watching, waiting. But Jason no longer felt fear. He knew humans had something that no predator, no hive, no challenge could take away: intelligence, courage, and loyalty. Humans adapted, survived, and thrived, and every day proved it again. He looked back at Mara and the team inside the base. Together, they had faced impossible odds and come out victorious. The aliens had underestimated humans' ability to think, to act, and to work as one. The hive may be clever, but humans were cleverer. Somewhere in the jungle, the xenoserpents would remember today. And somewhere in the galaxy, if anyone had been watching, the tale of humans on Epsilon Cygni IV would spread. Small, fragile, but brave, clever, and unyielding. Jason felt a sense of pride and hope. Humanity had survived another challenge, not because they were strong or fast, but because they refused to give up, refused to panic, and used their minds to find solutions no other species could. The jungle remained alive, mysterious, and dangerous, but humans had made their mark. They had shown that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most unexpected threats, and they would continue to do so, wherever life placed them. As the twin moons rose higher, casting silver light over the glowing leaves, Jason whispered to himself, "We are humans. We adapt. We survive. We endure." Mara joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Jason. And one day, the galaxy will know the same." And with that, the base settled into quiet, vigilant peace. The humans had proven themselves once again. Small, fragile, but unstoppable when their minds and hearts worked together. The jungle hummed softly, alive and unpredictable. Somewhere deep in the shadows, the xeno-serpents would plan their next move. But for now, humans had triumphed, not by strength or weapons, but by ingenuity, courage, and unity. And that was something no creature in the galaxy could ever take away.